I stood at the altar adjusting my tie for what felt like the 100th time. The weight of every stare in the room pressed down on me. Then I saw her, Cindy, walking down the aisle like the moment had been made for her. Confident, radiant, every movement precise, but flowing like it came naturally. Her dress was modest in design, but flawless in effect, the kind that made everyone else fade into the background. We'd met at a fundraiser nearly 2 years ago, an event my company had sponsored. She was sharp, witty, with just enough sarcasm to keep me on my toes. She didn't seem even slightly impressed with me, and I liked that. I had to earn her attention, and I respected the challenge. Now here we were, tying our lives together. My best man, Jason, my oldest friend, leaned in and whispered, "You really did it, Russ." I grinned, eyes still locked on Cindy. "Let's not jinx it." He laughed and gave me a firm pat on the back that drew a few smiles from the front row. The ceremony flew by, vows, rings, a kiss. The kind of moment people say you'll remember forever, though it all felt like a rush of adrenaline. At the reception, Cindy was in her element. Charming, graceful, dancing with my nieces, laughing in all the right places. She held my hand when awkward things came up and handled every social curveball like a pro. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the woman I'm going to build a legacy with. That night we stumbled into the condo I bought half a year before our engagement. She kicked off her shoes, spun once in the living room, then dropped onto the couch with a carefree laugh. I walked over, took her hands, and said, "Come on, Mrs. Hayes, let's start this off right." She smiled, but then pulled back gently. "Not tonight, Russ. I'm completely wiped." I paused, smiled, and kissed her forehead. "Of course," I said. It had been a long day. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. What I didn't realize then was that the night wasn't just a one-off. It was a first warning sign, small but sharp. That first week, I gave her space. We were both busy, thank you cards, family check-ins, catching up on work. But our night stayed quiet and distant. I'd reach out, light touches, a hand on her waist, but she'd always recoil or murmur, something about being exhausted. "My body, my choice," she'd say, not angry, just flat, like a line she practiced. I didn't argue. I wasn't going to push her into anything, but it gnawed at me. I tried to talk one evening over pasta. "You all right, Cindy?" She didn't look up. "I'm fine." I waited. "You sure? You seem a little off." She finally looked at me, expression unreadable. "Marriage takes adjusting, Russ. It's not perfect from day one." I nodded, pretending that sounded reasonable, but inside I wasn't convinced. Then there were the calls. Late ones she'd take in the other room, her voice low. I'd ask who it was, and she'd smile vaguely. "Work stuff," she'd say. Cindy had always worked in marketing, not a high-stakes job, but now she was constantly busy. She also started asking about the company. "How much did the expansion cost again?" she asked one night, not looking up from her food. "Why?" I asked, just curious. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, she was my wife now. She had a right to know. But there was a tone in her questions, like she was sizing things up. Jason dropped by one afternoon with some golf clubs I'd left at his place. He stayed for a beer. "So how's the newlywed life?" he asked with a grin. "Good." I lied. He raised an eyebrow but didn't press. When Cindy walked in a few minutes later, he looked at her just a moment too long. She gave him a smile, polite, distant, but it didn't feel right. I ignored it at the time. Everything unraveled on a Tuesday night. I woke to the faint sound of a voice. Hers. It wasn't a video or a call with her sister. It was a low, clipped tone coming from the guest bathroom down the hall. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding, and listened at the door. "I'm working on it," she whispered. "He has no clue. Just be patient." Silence. Then a soft, intimate laugh. Not the kind you use in public. This was private, intimate. I stepped back just before she opened the door. She nearly ran into me. Her eyes widened, then quickly reset. "What are you doing up?" she asked. "Couldn't sleep." "Who were you talking to?" She blinked once. "Work, you know how it is." Then walked right past me like nothing had happened. I stood there, my fists at my sides, not saying a word. But I knew. When she fell asleep, I picked up her phone. I hated myself for it, but I had to see. The call logs were full of one name, Jason. Late night calls. Long durations. My chest caved in, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed more. That Friday, Cindy said she was catching up with an old college friend. She dressed like she was going to a gala. Tight dress, heels clicking against the hardwood. I waited 2 minutes after she left, then followed. Kept a safe distance as she drove downtown. She didn't pull into any restaurant. She parked behind a closed coffee shop. And there he was, Jason. They got out of their cars at the same time and met in the middle, kissing like it wasn't new, like they'd done it a dozen times before. I didn't confront them. Not then. I sat in my car, silent, watching, clenching the steering wheel until the leather groaned beneath my grip. Something inside me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just final, cold. I went home in silence. Streetlights passed like camera flashes. When she came in later, I acted normal. I smiled, asked how her night went. So good, she said. Great catching up. I smiled wider. You deserve it. While she showered, I went through her purse, found a second phone, a burner, prepaid, hidden. I didn't unlock it. Didn't need to. I took pictures, time-stamped them, emailed them to myself. The next day, I called a private investigator, a guy Robert had used for a corporate dispute. Over the next 2 weeks, he gave me everything. Photos of Cindy and Jason at a motel, quiet dinners, cash withdrawals she'd lied about, even texts pulled from a cloud backup, messages about wrapping this up and moving on. At work, Jason kept up appearances, even dropped by my office one afternoon. Poker this weekend? He asked casually. I looked at him, the man who used to sleep on my couch during college, who once bailed me out after a DUI. Can't, I said. Got plans with Cindy. He smirked, thought he was winning. But I wasn't just watching. I was preparing, setting up every piece. Cindy still asked about money, her voice sweet, but her words like fishing lines. You ever think about selling the company? She'd ask lightly, like it was a joke. Company? She asked one night while we were watching TV. Maybe in a few years, I said, once we've grown it a bit more. She nodded, half listening, her fingers flying over her phone under the blanket, probably texting Jason, probably talking about how she'd map out my future, without me. Even noticing that was fine. They thought they were clever, thought they had time, thought they were in control. They didn't realize I was already 5 steps ahead. By the 3rd week, I had gathered everything I needed, photos, bank statements, message logs. I compiled it all into a thick folder, dense enough to crush any lie they'd ever try to float. That Friday, I left work early and went to see my lawyer, Angela. She was sharp and direct, exactly the kind of person I needed. I slid the folder across her desk. She flipped through the contents quickly, her lips tightening into a hard line. Russell, she said, this isn't just cheating. This is fraud. She's setting you up for a financial hit. I figured. I said, I'll draft the papers. You want to move quickly? No warning. I nodded. No argument there. That night, Cindy came home around 10 o'clock, smelling like a perfume I didn't recognize and smiling like she hadn't just spent the evening gutting what little was left of our marriage. I handed her a glass of wine, kissed her on the cheek. How was your night? Good, she said, taking a long sip. Just girl stuff. She curled up on the couch again, texting under the blanket, probably telling Jason how clueless I was, how easy it all was. I sat across from her, not angry, not even hurt, just done. The next morning, Angela served her the divorce papers in our kitchen while she scrolled through her phone, eating yogurt. She looked at the envelope like it might explode. What's this? Divorce, I said, sipping my coffee. Fraud and infidelity. She laughed like it was some bad sitcom. You can't be serious. Dead serious. I stood, dropped my keys into my pocket. Oh, and just so, you know, you're not a cent. The prenup is airtight, and I've got more proof than you can lie your way out of. Her face twisted, the sweetness falling away. "You'll regret this, Russell," she hissed. "Already regretted marrying you," I said as I walked out the door. I didn't see the wine glass smash against the wall behind me, but I heard it. Cindy didn't go quietly, of course. Within days, she went online and unleashed her version of the story. Claims of a loveless marriage, emotional abuse, isolation. Friends I hadn't heard from in months started texting, asking what was going on. I ignored most of them. The ones who mattered knew better. The rest weren't worth keeping around. Jason tried to keep his head down, but the private investigator dug up enough dirt to make him sweat. Turns out he and Cindy weren't just cheating. They were plotting. The plan was to bleed me dry, sell off my company behind my back, and walk away with the profits. One afternoon, Jason had the nerve, or the stupidity, to show up at my office. No knock, just barging while I was reviewing blueprints. "Russell, man, come on," he said. "Let's just talk." I set the plans down carefully. "You want to talk?" I asked evenly. "Talk to Angela. You'll be hearing from her soon. You paid a PI? You don't have to do this." It wasn't personal. I laughed, short and sharp. "You slept with my wife and tried to destroy my company." "Yeah, real impersonal." He shifted, starting to see the trap he was already caught in. I was desperate. I needed out. Cindy had ideas. "No, Cindy had you on a leash," I said. "You made your choices. Now live with them." I had security escort him out, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want to waste another breath on him. Cindy's smear campaign didn't last long. Angela released a quiet, clean statement. Nothing dramatic, just the facts. Screenshots, money trails, timelines, the truth. The internet did the rest. One day, Cindy was a sympathetic victim. The next, a punchline, a meme, forgotten by dinner. And me? I kept working, signed contracts, built things, stayed steady. They tried to burn my life down. All they did was set fire to their own futures. Cindy didn't stop trying, though. Texts, calls, each one more frantic than the last. The final message was short. "You ruined everything. Hope you're happy." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Jason tried to start his own construction company. Word got around. It collapsed in 3 months. Burned bridges don't hold much weight. Meanwhile, I kept building new projects, new people, promoted Eddie, my longtime site foreman, to operations manager. Angela tightened up the legal framework of the company. I'd lost a wife, a best friend, and a lot of what used to be my social circle. But I still had my name, my business, my future. No one owned any of it who hadn't earned their place. A month later, I drove past the edge of the city. No real destination in mind, just needed air that didn't smell like drywall dust or courtroom silence. I found myself at an old overlook, one of those places teenagers used to drink and make promises they'd never keep. I parked the truck, stepped out into the cool evening. The city stretched below me, lights flickering like a giant heartbeat. Somewhere down there, Cindy was still spinning her stories. Jason was still pointing fingers. Didn't matter. None of it touched me anymore. I thought back to our wedding day, tied choke in my neck, thinking love and loyalty would be enough, thinking she was a prize. I smiled, not bitter, not sad, just older, smarter. Some things break because they were never built right in the first place. The real shame would have been staying blind to cracks. I took the blinders off, took the hit, got up again. Now I was building something new from the ground up, every brick my own. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, one of the coordinators who joined us recently. No games, no masks, drinks after work Friday. Just us. I looked at the screen for a long minute, then slipped the phone back into my pocket. Not because I needed someone, not because I was trying to fill a space Cindy left. Because this time, whatever came next would be mine, by choice, not accident. I took one last look at the city. Then I climbed back into the truck and drove off. Not running, just moving forward. The way it should be,